In 1943, 4 boys were poaching birds in a woodland in Worcestershire, England. One of them climbed a large wych elm tree to check for nesting birds. He looked down into the hollow of the trunk, and he found a human skull staring back at him. The boys ran. They were terrified. They had been poaching illegally and decided amongst themselves to tell nobody what they had found. But one of them couldn't sleep that night. He told his parents. His parents told the police. And when officers arrived at that hollow tree the following morning, what they found inside would become one of the most disturbing and most baffling unsolved cases in British history. This is CrimeArchive. Tonight we are opening the file on the body in the wych elm. The tree was located in Hagley Wood, a dense, private woodland on the Hagley Hall estate in Worcestershire. When police searched the hollow trunk of the wych elm, they didn't just find a skull, they found an almost complete human skeleton. A woman, estimated to be in her mid-30s. She had been dead for approximately 18 months, placing her death somewhere around late 1941. Her remains had been stuffed feet first into the hollow of the trunk. The space was so tight that the tree had actually grown around parts of the skeleton. She had not fallen in. She had not crawled in. Someone had put her there, deliberately, carefully, and with enough knowledge of that woodland to know exactly where to hide her. Think about what that means for a moment. Hagley Wood is not a place you stumble across. It sits on private estate land. Whoever placed her inside that tree knew the woodland well enough to move through it at night, carrying a body, without being seen or heard by anyone. Detectives also found something else alongside the bones, a piece of taffeta fabric, stuffed into the skull's mouth. It had been placed there before, or at the time of death, not afterward. The cause of death was asphyxiation. She had been suffocated. And here is the first thing that should stop you cold. Despite a full police investigation in 1943, despite the near-complete state of her remains, despite forensic examination by some of the leading pathologists in Britain at the time, nobody could identify her. Not then, not now, not ever. 80 years later, the woman in the wych elm still has no name. Police worked the case hard in 1943. They examined the fabric found in her mouth and traced it to a type of rayon taffeta commonly available in Britain during the early 1940s, which told them almost nothing. They studied her teeth, her bone structure, her estimated height, around 5 foot tall, and her approximate age. Dental records were checked across the region. Missing persons reports were reviewed. Local hospitals were contacted. Nothing matched. No woman fitting her description had been officially reported missing in the area, which raised an immediate and deeply troubling question. If nobody reported her missing, who was she living among? Did people around her simply not notice she was gone? Or did the people who knew her have reasons of their own not to draw attention to her disappearance? In wartime Britain, record-keeping was disrupted. People moved frequently. Identities were sometimes deliberately obscured. Women living on the edges of society, without stable addresses, without regular employment, without family connections in the area, could disappear during the war years and leave almost no paper trail behind them. The system simply wasn't designed to notice them, and the fact that she was hidden, not buried, not dumped, but deliberately concealed inside a living tree in private woodland, suggested someone who knew exactly what they were doing, someone who was not panicking, someone who had planned this. 3 years after the discovery, something strange began happening across the West Midlands. Graffiti started appearing on walls, on bridges, on public surfaces. The same message, over and over again. Who put Bella in the wych elm? Sometimes it read, Who put Lou Bella in the wych elm? The graffiti appeared in multiple locations, too widespread to be the work of one person acting alone, and it gave the unknown woman her informal name, Bella. Who was writing it? Were they someone who knew her? Someone who knew what had happened? Someone with a guilty conscience who couldn't quite bring themselves to go to the police? The graffiti was always handwritten, always chalk or paint, always in public places where it would be seen. It read less like vandalism and more like a plea, like someone desperately trying to get the world to keep asking a question that official investigators had quietly shelved. The graffiti was never traced to a specific person, and most haunting of all, versions of that same message still appear in Worcestershire to this day. 80 years later, someone still wants people to ask the question. But here's where the case takes a turn most people never hear about. Because in the late 1940s, a journalist began investigating the case, and a woman contacted her with a story that connected the body in the Wych Elm to something far bigger than a local murder. The journalist was Una Archer, working for a Midlands newspaper. A woman contacted her anonymously and claimed that Bella was a Dutch woman named Clarabella Dronkers, the wife of a Dutch spy who had been captured and executed by the British during the Second World War. Under this theory, Bella had been part of a wartime spy network operating in the British Midlands. She had either been silenced by her own handlers for knowing too much, or eliminated by British intelligence to prevent her from talking. It would explain several things that the standard investigation couldn't account for. Why no missing persons report was ever filed, why no one came forward to identify her, and why she was hidden so deliberately in such a remote location. The British government has never confirmed or denied this theory, and official wartime intelligence files from that period remain classified or were destroyed, which means if this theory is true, the truth may have been buried by the very institutions that should have investigated it. In 2016, a forensic artist produced a facial reconstruction of what Bella may have looked like based on her skull measurements. The image was released publicly in the hope that someone, a descendant, a relative, anyone, might recognize the face. The response was significant. Tips came in from across Britain and Europe. None of them led to a confirmed identification. Today, investigators and historians have narrowed the case to three main possibilities. Theory 1. A local murder. Bella was a local woman, possibly a sex worker or someone living on the margins of society, killed by someone who knew the woodland well enough to hide her body with confidence. The lack of a missing persons report suggests she was either living outside the system or that someone with knowledge of her disappearance deliberately chose not to report it. Theory 2. Wartime espionage. Bella was connected to wartime intelligence operations, either as an agent, an asset, or an inconvenient witness. Her death was sanctioned or carried out by people with access to classified networks, and her identity was deliberately erased. Theory 3. Ritual or occult connection. The method of concealment, a body placed inside a living hollow tree with fabric stuffed in the mouth, has led some researchers to suggest a connection to local folklore practices or occult ritual. This is the least supported theory academically, but it has never been fully ruled out. All three theories share one thing in common. They all end in the same place. No name, no confirmed killer, no closed file. Somewhere in Britain tonight, there may be a family that carries the answer to this case. A grandmother's story never told, a letter never opened, a name whispered and then forgotten. The woman in the Wych Elm was somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, possibly somebody's mother. She was hidden inside a living tree in a private woodland during the darkest years of the Second World War, and the world moved on without ever knowing who she was. 80 years of silence, 80 years of graffiti, asking the same question on the same walls. 80 years of a file that nobody has been able to close. Bella deserves a name, and until she gets one, the file stays open. Which theory do you believe? Was Bella a local woman killed by someone who knew those woods? A wartime spy silenced to protect a secret? Or is the truth something we haven't uncovered yet? Comment the word Bella below and tell me what you think happened. I read every single one. And if cases like this pull you in, cold, unresolved, and bigger than the official story, subscribe to Crime Archive, because we are only just getting started. Crime Archive. Some files never close.